So what could possibly scare one of the authors have written probably the most horror books in our time that have been turned into movies that have scared us since we were probably kids? Well, in an article in the New York Times, 1970s, that question was asked to Stephen King. What was he afraid of? Well, believe it or not, his reply was, I hate to fly. It scares the devil out of me. But who is Stephen King? See, he is someone that's contributed many, many works that have probably spawned more movies that's probably been affected our culture than anybody else. See, to understand him a little more and the work he's done to our culture and contributed through his lifetime, we need to go back to the beginning of his story about himself. You see, he was born in Portland, Maine in 1947. When he was younger, his dad left. He was raised by his mom and his siblings. He attended college at the University of Maine at Ortono, where he earned a bachelor's of English and was qualified to teach high school English. While he was in college, he met his wife, and they were soon married thereafter in 1971. See, he taught high school English very briefly for about a year before he actually started doing his actual writing career. During that time, he wrote short stories and novels on the weekends and at night. He was only making about $6,000 a year as a high school teacher before he started doing his first novel that was published by a company that was sold. The first book that actually sent him off his career was Carrie. It was picked up by Doubleday, and they bought it from him, and his paperback covers probably sold nearly 4 million copies. He moved many times when he was in the 70s, when he was married, from Colorado to a brief stint in England before finally settling back in Maine. See, he has 3 children, and him and his wife sponsor scholarships for local high school kids. He received the 2003 National Book Foundation Medal for distinguished contribution to the American letters, as well as many other numerous. In 1999, he was in an accident, and he was severely injured with many fractures and underwent many surgeries during that time, which limited him in his writing career later on in the future. So now let's talk about his works, from when he first started out to the most recent. His first short story, Cell, was a startling mystery stories called The Glass Floor in 1967. He continued short stories and writing short novels, eventually compiling them all together into something called The Night Shift. His first novel, like I said, was Carrie, and that's what really set him off to start his writing career full time. He quit teaching and began writing. In 1975, King completed The Sailor's Lot, but before it was called Sailor's Lot, it was first called The Second Coming, and then changed to Jerusalem's Lot. He completed in 1975. He also used another name called Richard Bachman in the 70s to the early 80s, and made books under that name: Rage, The Long Walk, Roadwork, The Running Man, and Finner. He also used the name John Swiftman for one book called The Fifth Quarter. In the 80s, some of his books that were very popular at the time were Cujo, Christine, Firestarter, The Eyes of the Dragon, which is a book I have right here, as well as probably most of you might know is Pet Sematary. The 90s, which is when most of us probably grew up in when we were younger. Most books at that time were probably It, the book that I have here, Bag of Bones, and Insomnia. I'm actually reading It right now. The reason why, when I was younger, my mom read It. She reads a lot of books. But she said that out of all the books she's ever read, this is the one that probably scared her the most. To the point that she only read it with the lights on and my dad in the bed next to her, because the book scared her that much. Just to give you an idea of some of the effective writing that this man has made with his books. Some of the most recent books you might know that came out this year, for example, were Joyland and Dr. Sleep, which is actually the sequel to The Shining. An article by Karen Wilson from the literature.com says that if horror is an addiction, then Stephen King is the gateway drug. That's how much of an effect this man has had with literature and the horror genre. Now let's talk about some movies and TV shows that he's either been in or were based off his books. See, he's been a guest star in many TV shows, from Frasier to The Simpsons to even Sons of Anarchy, with brief roles. In some of his movies that would books turn movies, he played small parts in them. A Pet Cemetery, for example, The Creep Show, and other movies like Sleepwalker and Thinner. Some other books that were popular became movies that he wasn't in will be It, which is actually scheduled to be remade into an actual 2-part movie. Rumors have it as of right now. As well as Salem's Lot, Carrie, Christine, Shining, and Cujo. I know I watched it when I was younger. At the time, this scared the crap out of me. I mean, it's a clown trying to kill somebody. And then watching Pet Sematary as a kid too, I'm just saying. Some of his books that he made have made some really good movies. And he's affected us a lot in this culture. He's made books that are still read and popular to this day. It just came out with the 20th anniversary edition book, the new cover. They're remaking Pet Sematary in the process too. So this person, this author, has contributed quite a bit. You see, It here is probably one of the favorite books I've read so far. I'm just pretty sure reading it right now. I'm probably in the 3rd chapter. But I encourage you guys to read a book, to read it. Or any of his books for that matter. Just see the expressions and the descriptions he puts in his literature that can really affect you. You can actually imagine the scenes going on in this book. And it might terrify you too. I want to read you a quote real quick that he wrote in the beginning of the book from It to his kids before the book started. It says, "Kids, fiction is the truth inside the lie. The truth of fiction is simple enough. The magic exists." So you see, this is about the author Stephen King. About some of his works, some of the things that he's been in, as well as a little bit about himself. Thank you. How long was it?